You know that feeling, right? It's confusing, it's frustrating. Someone clearly doesn't like you, but you have absolutely no idea why. There was no big fight, no obvious conflict, and yet you just feel that coldness. It's so easy to turn inward and blame yourself, but what if the reason has almost nothing to do with you at all? I think we've all been there. You start replaying every little conversation, trying to figure out what you said or did wrong. Maybe you even try to be extra nice, thinking you can win them over. But it never seems to work, does it? The truth is, that dislike you're picking up on, it often reveals way more about their internal world than it does about you. And this right here, this is the key. This quote really frames everything we're about to dig into. We're going to move past the self-blame to understand the powerful psychological forces that are really at play and why someone's reaction to you is so often about their own stuff. All right, so let's dive in with one of the most common culprits, misplaced anger. It usually starts with behavior that just seems off, like a total overreaction that feels like it came out of thin air. Okay, so picture this classic scenario. A guy gets chewed out by his boss at work. He can't yell back, right? He'd get fired. So he bottles it up, goes home, and when his dog happily jumps up to greet him, he just snaps. Now, the dog did nothing wrong. It was just a convenient, safe target for anger that was built up somewhere else entirely. And this isn't just a story. It's a real, well-documented psychological phenomenon. So there's actually a name for this. Psychologists call it displaced aggression. And as you can see from the definition, it's what happens when someone can't fight back against the real source of their frustration. Maybe they're afraid or the person has power over them, so they redirect all that negativity onto a safer, innocent target. And sometimes that target is you. And what you're seeing here is basically how it happens, step by step. Researchers call it triggered displaced aggression. It's like a chain reaction. So step one, there's the initial problem, the bad day at work, the fight with their spouse. Step two, they feel powerless to retaliate. Then step three, an innocent person, you, provides some tiny, totally minor trigger. You just ask a simple question, and boom. Step four, because all that anger is already simmering, they unleash this completely disproportionate reaction on you. Okay, but an outburst is pretty obvious, right? What happens when the anger isn't some big explosion, but it's more subtle? When it's not a loud argument, but this quiet, underhanded negativity that you can just feel? Well, that's where we get into passive aggression. It's basically hidden anger. It's a way for people to get even without ever having to risk a direct confrontation. The hostility is disguised, so you feel it, but you can't always point to it and prove it, which, let's be honest, is incredibly frustrating. And man, it can show up in so many different ways. You've got verbal stuff, like sarcasm or a backhanded compliment followed by that classic, "oh, I'm just kidding." Then there's relational hostility, like the silent treatment, or conveniently forgetting to include you in plans. It can even be about tasks, like a coworker who always seems to procrastinate on something you need. And then there's this really wild one, hostility through self-punishment, where someone plays the victim to make you feel guilty. Okay, so we've talked about the behaviors, the blow-ups, and the subtle jabs. But what if this isn't just someone having a bad day? What if it's just part of who they are? This is where we go from talking about a bad day to a whole personality style. When these behaviors are consistent, when they're the rule and not the exception, we might be looking at a specific kind of personality structure, often called covert narcissism. Now, when you hear narcissist, you probably picture someone loud, right? The overt narcissist, the one who brags and needs to be the center of attention. But the covert narcissist, they're different. They're often quiet, withdrawn, even sullen. Instead of exploding when they're criticized, they'll just shut down and give you the silent treatment. They don't shout, "look how smart I am." They mutter, "nobody ever notices how smart I am." So let's break down the key traits you'll see. They can seem shy on the surface, but underneath, they are incredibly sensitive to anything that feels like criticism. This sensitivity fuels a massive victim mentality, this constant feeling that the world is unfair to them. And that pessimistic outlook makes them absolute masters of passive-aggressive manipulation, all to get the attention they secretly crave, while being totally absorbed in their own little world of grievances. So, covert narcissism is one big piece of this puzzle. But sometimes it's part of something even bigger, an entire cluster of socially negative personality traits. Yeah, psychologists actually have a name for this, the dark tetrad. Now, these are what you call subclinical traits. That just means someone can have these tendencies without having a full-blown disorder. But when they show up together, they create this really potent, toxic mix of behaviors. So, what are these four things, really? Well, narcissism is that classic sense of entitlement. Machiavellianism is all about manipulation, seeing other people as pieces on a chessboard. Psychopathy is that cold lack of empathy and remorse. And the fourth one, sadism, is pretty chilling. It's actually getting pleasure from seeing other people suffer. And here's the really important part. While these four traits are different, research shows they often hang out together. A person who is high in one is pretty likely to be high in the others too. They form what scientists call a dark constellation of personality. And check out this number. A recent study found this really strong positive link, 0.509, between psychopathy and sadism. That's actually the strongest link in the whole tetrad. And it suggests that a lack of empathy and enjoying other people's pain are, not surprisingly, powerfully and dangerously connected. Okay, we've peeled back a few layers here. We've looked at the behaviors, the personality types, but now we're getting to the absolute core of it all. What is the fundamental psychological engine that's driving all this negativity in your direction? So, underneath all the aggression, the narcissism, the manipulation, what's really driving it? Well, there are some raw, really powerful emotions at work, and understanding these is the key to finally getting why someone might dislike you for seemingly no reason at all. A huge part of the answer is something called psychological projection. It's basically a defense mechanism. It's when people take the parts of themselves they can't stand, maybe their own insecurity or dishonesty or feelings of inadequacy, and they unconsciously just pin them on someone else. It's like a way to disown their own flaws. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? I'm not terrible, you are. This is the internal logic. By attacking that thing in you, they get to feel like they're fighting it off in themselves. They create an enemy on the outside so they don't have to face the one on the inside. And that is why it's so often about what you represent, not actually who you are as a person. They're not reacting to you, they're reacting to what your very presence makes them feel. Your calm highlights their inner chaos. Your confidence pokes at their deepest insecurities. When you set a healthy boundary, it feels like a personal attack to them. You basically become a mirror they never asked to look into, and they hate you for the reflection. So when we talk about envy here, it's really important to understand something. This usually isn't about what you have, like your job or your car. It's often envy for who you are. They envy your peace of mind, your self-respect, your ability to just be okay, and those are things you can't buy, which makes it even more infuriating for someone who's constantly chasing external approval. All right, that was a lot. We've gone through some pretty dark stuff, but we're not going to leave you there, because understanding the problem is one thing, but what can you actually do about it? Well, the answer is surprisingly simple, and it's probably not what you're expecting. Because this is the question, right? What do you actually do about it? Do you confront them? Ignore them? Try that whole kill them with kindness thing? The problem is, a lot of those strategies don't work because you're actually trying to solve the wrong problem. See, the natural reaction is either to fight back or, maybe even worse, to start making yourself smaller. You dim your own light so they feel more comfortable. But that's just a betrayal of yourself. The real solution doesn't involve changing who you are one bit. Instead, it's about changing the entire dynamic of the interaction. Well, the answer comes from this really cool psychological quirk called the Benjamin Franklin effect. It's totally counterintuitive. We think we do favors for people we already like, right? But this shows that we actually come to like people that we do favors for. So why does this work? It's all about how our brains hate being inconsistent. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance. Think about it. If someone's action is, I did something nice for them, but their feeling is, I dislike them, it creates this mental static. And to get rid of that static, it's actually easier for their brain to change the feeling. Their mind basically says, I guess I don't dislike them that much after all, since I just helped them. So how do you actually use this? The key is to start small, like really small. Ask to borrow a pen, ask for their opinion on something they know about, or for a simple recommendation for a good book or restaurant. And you frame it as a compliment. You're showing that you value their knowledge. It gives them a super easy, low-stakes way to do a kind thing for you.
And let's be super clear here. This isn't about being manipulative. You're not trying to trick them. What you're doing is strategically creating an opportunity for them to see you in a different light. You're opening a tiny door, giving them a chance to fix their own internal conflict and build a small positive bridge where before there was just negativity.
So at the end of the day, in a world that can feel full of this really complex negativity, isn't it wild to think that maybe, just maybe, the simplest path forward isn't to build higher walls, but to just ask for a little help? It's a fascinating thought to end on.